everybody. So this is the Saniflostore, and today we're going to go through taking apart a Saniplus and replacing the membrane and the clips. So common problem with older Saniplus is sometimes the membrane becomes deformed, either from water scale or from bleach over time. The pump's not going to turn on and off properly. So we're going to go through the process. Pretty simple. This is a new Saniplus. Old ones are very similar. The new ones in general will swap into the old position if you need to replace it. Great unit. It's a 1/2 horsepower macerator. It's been around forever. It's definitely the most widely used macerator probably in the world. So yeah, it's an excellent unit overall. We do have them in stock, so certainly if you're having a problem with yours, give us a call. We can help you out. But I'm going to go ahead and take it apart and just show you the process. So there's a clip on each side that holds the top in place. Basically, you want to just get a screwdriver under that clip and kind of pry it up. We'll go to the other side, pry that side up. And then this lid's been off already, so it's fairly easy to get off. But if you're taking it off for the first time, you probably want to just run your fingers under the back and just try to pull on the gasket a little bit. And it'll help you get the top off, because they are pretty tight. So you just want to, sometimes when you work them off, the clips will reclip. So that's the top. Gaskets in here. You want to make sure this gasket seats nicely in this seal, especially when putting it back on, because that's the only way to really get it back on. So I usually will lubricate it a little bit before I put it back on. You can just go ahead and set that aside. So this is the Saniplus. The motor, when you do grab this motor to take it out, make sure you grab them from the bottom, because sometimes over time, you know, some people are running pumps that are 10 or 12 years old. The plastic can become a little bit frail. So to get the motor out, you're going to want to pull this grommet through and pull the cord all the way through. And once you do that, you can really kind of reach in and grab the body of the motor. In this particular unit, it's in channels. It has little rubber feet that slide down into these channels. Sometimes the rubber feet will stay in the channel. Just want to take it off and put it back on the pump. Make sure you don't lose them. So you can take the case at this point, just set it aside. Some of the older models will have screws. I think it had 1 in the front and 2 to the back. Same process, basically just take the screws out and the unit will slide out. So this is the heart of the Saniplus. Again, 1/2 horsepower macerator. There's a couple little gaskets here I like to just take off so I don't lose them. You can just go ahead inside and see that the macerator blades, heavy duty stainless steel blade. No real reason to ever swap it out. Some other brands on the market make you swap them out, which is just kind of silly in my opinion, because if you think about what these things are grinding up, you definitely do not want to have to go inside of these. So Saniplus motor, if something is ever caught down here in the impeller, this piece does turn and come off pretty easily. The impeller, that also is replaceable. Again, I think over the years I've seen 1 or 2 that have needed it. Usually it's only if something gets caught down in there. But that's just like a 1/4 turn. It just locks right back in place. But what we're going to focus on today is the membrane and the pressure chamber. So it hangs off the side of the unit, and what it does is it's going to sense the water pressure as water comes in. It's going to turn on and off as needed. So it's fully automatic, but I'm just going to go ahead and plug it in and show you exactly what it sounds like, really, or what it's going to be doing. If you do test it like this, make sure your hands are not near the blades or the impeller, because you can, you know, cut off a finger for sure. But usually when it's in the pump, water comes in, it's going to kick the unit on, water's all pumped out, it's going to shut the unit off. So real simple, but what happens is sometimes this membrane becomes deformed over time. So we're going to go ahead and swap that out. We do stock these parts. Pretty easy to swap out, so if you do need to do it, just give us a call. We can get them on order. I think the membranes are about $40. The clips are like $12 for the pair. So pretty simple. All right. So again, white band goes around. You're going to take your screwdriver in just kind of perpendicular to the band, and kind of in a twisting motion, pry and twist up. You want to do it so you're not going to break the unit. And then you just pry the clip over. And here's your membrane. From the factory, the membrane may have a seal on the inside of it. Don't worry about that when you're replacing it. Just go ahead and put the new one on with the clips. That comes from the factory like that. It's not really a concern after the fact. There's a little notch on the membrane which matches this notch here when you're replacing it back on. So this is the plunger for the pressure chamber. Basically that just delivers the pressure to the switch. That also just pops right out. I'm going to go ahead and take the pressure chamber apart just so you can see it. And if you ever need to get into the capacitor or to the switch, it'll just show you how to do so. So again, you just kind of gently pry on it. This one's been apart a couple times, so it's a little bit easier than the normal. This cord can be a little bit tricky. But what you're going to do is just gently pull up, and that cord will pull right along. But inside the unit, you're going to have a pressure micro switch. It's just 2 wires, so super easy to swap that out if you ever need to. And your capacitor, again, 2 wires that go into a switch block. I recommend taking a picture of this if you are going to be taking this apart, just so you know where everything goes. But if you know, it's a real simple design, which is great. Not a lot of moving parts in there, so it makes it very easy to work on if you do need to. So to get that back in, you kind of just slide the capacitor down in, make sure the wires aren't coming in contact with anything or the switch or anything, and then you're just going to simply push this guy back down, and that's going to click into place. And once you do that, you put your plunger back. You can hear the motion that activates the switch. Again, your new membrane, you're going to take your new membrane, just gently just set it on. It's going to have to stretch over the plunger. You want to make sure you're not pushing that plunger down in. Make sure that that notch goes into the channel, into its little spot. And then you're going to take your horseshoe clips. There's 2 sides to the horseshoe clip. There's a little bevel in there. The bevel is going to go to the bottom. So the bottom of the pump. So it's going to go on just like this. So bevels to the bottom of the pump, or in this case, as you're working on it, at the top. And when you sit it on, it's not going to sit in the channel. It's going to sit over the top edge of it. A lot of people will set it in the channel, and it's not going to work. It's not going to seat properly. You'll probably end up breaking the clip. So when you clip it back together, you're just going to line it up. You're going to take some needle nose pliers or a pair of pliers and just simply squeeze it. And it's going to clip back. And then it's smart at this point just to give it a test. Because if you put it in, if you installed it wrong, at this point when you plug it in, it would kick on. So I'm just going to go ahead and plug it in. It should not kick on. And so it's not kicking on. And then, again, we're going to give it a test. Keep your fingers away from everything. It's kicking on fine. Double check just to make sure that the clip is on tight. Make sure your pressure chamber is nice and seated. It does float a little bit. That motion is normal. There's one clip to the top, but the bottom is not clipped. Just make sure that it's in place. You want to make sure you unplug it again. So at this point, it's ready to go back into the unit. Again, flip it over. Be careful not to put too much pressure on this. I'll reinstall the 2 gaskets. It's easier to do it now than later. There's a little arrow here that you just line up at the top. Like so. So pretty easy. And then you're going to take the chamber again, the whole pump chamber. As I say, these gaskets are easy and it's starting to come off. Yeah, grabbing from the bottom so you're not snapping the top. Again, on this particular unit, there's 2 channels, and there's rubber that will sit down in those channels, and you're just going to slide it back down and in. Then there's 3 feet on the bottom. You just want to make sure you get those feet back in their saddles. Make sure this gasket is on properly. And then you're going to install your cord again. Slide the cord back through the hole. Make sure this grommet is nice and tight in there. It gets seated properly. It's a little tricky sometimes. But you want to make sure it has a good seat because it would be it would allow odors to escape if it's not seated properly. There we go. Get that gasket back on. And now for the top. So top on some of the older units, again, can be difficult. I recommend lubricating the gasket with just the WD-40 or a mild oil, nothing crazy. You could also test it at this point just to make sure. You could just reach kind of under and click it back on with your finger. But with this unit, I've just tested it. Confident it's going to work. Again, lubricate the gasket to get it back on. This is your discharge port. This has to slide down into this one. It will receive it. So you just got to make sure that that goes in, that it is over the back edge. Make sure it goes over all the edges. And then you're just going to gently put pressure on it to seat the gasket. And then on one end, just give it a good shove. Sometimes with the older units, you have to put a knee on them to get them to close, but there we go. Close that one up, and you're back in business. Whatever you do, don't hammer this with a hammer or mallet or anything. You can certainly just kind of tap it with your hand just to make sure it's seated. But a hammer is just going to break things. So, again, this is the Saniplus. We are the Saniflostore. If you need any parts for this unit, we usually have everything in stock. Just give us a call. The number is 866-658-0505, or you can order on our website, Saniflostore.com. Again, the Saniplus, this was just a video on how to replace that membrane. We're going to do some other videos on the Sani Access 3, the Sani Best Pro, the Sani Compact, etc. So keep questions coming. If you have them, feel free to call. We're here to help. And again, we have these in stock. So if you do need a new one, just give us a ring. Thank you.